USA Today Life in particular, got in a little bit of trouble yesterday because they published an article and a tweet thread that appeared to try to normalize pedophilia. Some of us on the right, hate to say I told you so, have called it for years that the left is inevitably going to try to normalize pedophilia. Not just because they are degenerate perverts. That's not why, actually. That's not the only reason why. But because the logic of the left on the sexual revolution requires them to normalize pedophilia. And that's exactly what this USA Today piece did. The article title was, "What the Public Keeps Getting Wrong About Pedophilia." You know that much put upon minority, pedophiles, you know them. There was a professor who was just fired for trying to normalize pedophilia, tried to redefine pedophiles as MAPs, minor attracted persons. So here's what USA Today says. We think we know what a pedophile is. There's a lot of misunderstanding. In recent decades, the science on pedophilia has improved. One of the most significant findings is that pedophilia is likely determined in the womb, though environmental factors may influence whether someone acts on an urge to abuse. The evidence suggests it is inborn. It's neurological, said James Cantor, a sex researcher and expert on pedophilia. Could you imagine being an expert on pedophilia? It's not the kind of expertise you want. When most of the public thinks of pedophilia, they assume it's synonymous with child sexual abuse. A pedophile is an adult who's sexually attracted to children, but not all pedophiles abuse kids. And some people who sexually abuse kids are not pedophiles. Pedophiles may not have control over the fact that they're attracted to kids, but they are responsible for what they do or don't act on, says Ann Salter, who's another pedophile expert. USA Today deleted this thread. They kept the article up, though they retitled it. They got a lot of backlash. They got a lot of backlash from conservatives, somewhat justifiably because they clearly are trying to normalize pedophilia. But I actually think conservatives reacted a little too quickly here, because I think that the principle that USA Today is describing is actually extremely conservative. And I think the principle that USA Today is describing actually undermines not just the left's argument on extremely creepy sex stuff like pedophilia, but the left's whole argument on the sexual revolution. What USA Today has done in this article, almost certainly unwittingly, is defended sexual repression and conversion therapy. On January 17th, tens of thousands of men are going to start living a different life. That different life is going to help them turn away from eating too much, drinking too much, and spending too much time in the office. It's going to challenge them to stop ignoring their wives, children, or friends by putting a pause on their social media, turning off Netflix, YouTube, and sports. Men, if you desire freedom, true freedom from attachments, freedom to be a better husband, a better father, and a better man for others, I invite you to check out Exodus90.com/Michael. Starting January 17th, Exodus 90 will take men on a 90-day journey through the book of Exodus, taking them back to the fundamentals of the faith: prayer, self-denial, and brotherhood. Tens of thousands of men from all around the world will start Exodus 90 this year on January 17th, 2022, to journey through Lent and end on Easter Sunday. To date, more than 50,000 men have done Exodus 90, 99% reported experiencing greater freedom. I invite you to join them on this life-changing journey. Head on over to Exodus90.com/Michael to sign up, set your start date for January 17th, and invite a few friends to journey with you. That is Exodus90.com/Michael. There were two kinds of backlash, I think, to this article. The only one we really saw was the conservative backlash. But think about what USA Today is saying here. They're saying pedophilia is natural. Natural meaning it's with you from the moment you're born. It's not something that's learned necessarily, but it's a sexual orientation, right? That's the difference between a sexual desire that maybe you develop over time and a sexual orientation that's with you from the moment of birth and you can't change it. Now, is pedophilia inborn, natural, a sexual orientation? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. That's kind of secondary to the point. What USA Today is saying is, even if a sexual desire is inborn, even if you're born this way, which was the left's entire argument on the LGBT movement and ultimately why they redefined marriage, you still should repress some of those desires. But hold on, we were told if you have a sexual desire from birth and you can't change it, it's immutable, then you should not repress it, that it's very harmful and unhealthy to repress that desire, that it's immoral to ask someone to repress that desire because they're born this way. Now, the conservative argument was always, look, people are born with all sorts of desires. It's a fallen world, and some of them you got to repress. But the left said, no, that's awful, that's retrograde, that's terrible. Now they seem to be endorsing that. Furthermore, they're saying these pedophiles need to go to therapy to try to mitigate their desires, to try to change their desires. That's just conversion therapy. Conversion therapy isn't a real thing. It's a slogan that the left has put on various psychological and spiritual programs to try to get people who have unwanted sexual desires to be able to repress them somewhat, or to mitigate them, or to change them. But they're endorsing that now for the pedos. Well, why? Well, because pedophilia is especially bad. Okay, sure, but I thought the argument that you were making is that it is immoral and unjust to force someone to repress their urges and to force someone to try to change their urges when you can't change those urges, by golly, because they're immutable and it's a sexual orientation. So you told me it was wrong to do that, but now you're saying it's right to do that in some cases. Why is it right to do that in some cases? Well, because certain sexual desires are simply wrong, Michael, is what they're saying. Huh. Interesting. Because that's not the argument. And by the way, I'm not just picking on the homosexuals here or the transgenderists or whatever. I'm talking about the whole sexual revolution. We were told, we weren't alive, I wasn't alive back then, but you can see it in the literature, in the 1960s, 1970s, that all sorts of sexual urges need to be indulged. Your urge to have sex before marriage, your urge to have sex with multiple people, your urge to, all of these urges, you can't stifle a man. It's free love. Come on, just let it out. Otherwise, you're going to explode. No, of course, that was never true. And only because we're taking this issue to the most logical extreme here do we see why that's not true. I kind of like the article. I know, sorry. I don't think that USA Today meant the article to be liked by conservatives such as us, but I think they make a very conservative point. Hey, you. It's nice to be with you. Nice to see you. I'm glad we could spend this time together. If you want to spend more time together, ring my bell. That's right. Ring my bell, LL. Ring my bell. You will get the notifications. You can also head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Subscribe to The Michael Knowles Show, MICHAEL, KNWLES, space SHOW. See you next time.